questions that you're sitting with, or things we could think about today? Cetera, did you hear me? I don't know if you.
Yes, I hear. But you want me to write on the screen? I cannot.
You could write in chat, or you could say it out loud. Either way.
Okay. No, I don't have any questions actually.
Okay.
We had good look at the work plan. No question yet. So if I.
All right, Abraham, how about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. I have two questions in mind. One, I'm planning an interfaith Christmas celebration with leaders of several religions in a city called Kollam. We have the Zero Limit CC there, and they have a college, and we are going to organize a big interfaith Christmas
I
CC
can't
there.
hear. Matt, can you hear? I can't hear you. Can you speak up?
Yeah, Abraham, you just need to speak up a bit, I think, Abraham.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so we are planning an interfaith Christmas celebration on 22nd, and that is my first question. And on the 6th of January, we have a planning forum. We are going to bring all our regional leaders and discuss all our forms and the new work plan and our year-end report and all these things. And we are going to plan for the whole year. And that meeting will be on the 6th of January. All the regional leaders will be here, and that is what is in my mind now. Thank you.
Okay. And you said you had a question about the interfaith celebration?
Yeah, it's not a question. My primary concerns at the moment are these two events that are coming.
Oh.
One at the end of this month, and then in the beginning of January. Otherwise, there is no question.
Okay. All right, great. Maria, do you have any questions or thoughts that you think might be helpful for discussion today?
In discussing with other regional coordinators the work plan, I think there was a certain difficulty in doing the visioning that we are asking for in such a little time. And specifically because we want that the vision comes from the CCs. If there's a way, or if for this visioning for the work plan is okay, just to interpret what RCs think CCs need. And of course, it is nice to have a meeting, a circle, and have these discussions, but this interpreting the will is something, if there's a methodology to do that, or how good this is.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And Matt, do you have anything you would like to add?
Yeah, and I wonder if this doesn't sort of loop together a couple of things that have been said. So Abraham mentioned this planning meeting in January, which I think fits into that visioning process, Maria, in the work plan and work planning involving the community for that. So well done, Abraham, for planning that. In the agenda that Abraham sent me and some others, there's a line that's particularly relevant to me, which is, we have some quality young leaders going on and doing some great things from some of the programs that we've done in Abraham's Zone. Historically, how do we develop a second or a new generation of young leaders? And I think expanded more widely to the second line of leadership. Abraham, you often mentioned that, and that's a question that I think I'd really love to tackle. So, developing, that new generation of leaders of whatever age, just a new cadre of leaders, second line or young leaders. And that fits in with, obviously one of the sessions that we've had. Always a topic I'm keen to explore in more detail.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect. Okay, so let's think about this whole planning thing and starting with vision. Maria, you asked about is there a methodology? We could actually write up a kind of a Zoom visioning process. I mean, I would be willing to do that we could share with folks where the RCs could lead it on Zoom with their CCs. I mean, or lead it in person if that's possible. But do you think that would be helpful?
I think it will, even if it is not something they can do pre-presenting the plan because there's a deadline that is close. At least that we have that methodology as a tool for the year, so that 2019 work plan is more informed with the voice of the CCs.
Okay, for RCs, I'm going to say for RCs to use with CCs either in person or on Zoom to lead 2019 for work plan. Okay. So why don't we tell people that they will receive something by Tuesday or Wednesday, by Wednesday of next week? A visioning process that they can lead. Would that help people, you think? With the question, to lead a meditation visioning process.
Yeah, I think it will be helpful. And again, I say perhaps it's not something that they can do now immediately, but that they have that in hand for the year, I think is very positive.
Yes. Okay, that sounds like a great idea.
I suppose I'm keen to kick this to Abraham. Abraham, if you're willing, because I'm curious. You have this day meeting of CCs and key leaders in your zone in January for that kind of planning process. Is there some activity at the start that you're either already planning or that would be useful to be given as an idea for the group to kind of come up with more of this visioning process, like a reflection or an activity or something, or have you got something already planned for that? So I'm just keen to hear if there's anything you want to add into that.
Yeah, Matthew, as I have sent to you already, I have made a schedule for that, and we have fixed all the important agenda items that we are going to discuss, and I'm preparing a PowerPoint presentation to introduce that, and also I'll be giving so many handouts to all, because all the important leaders from our zone are there, so they will get a clear picture about all this. And then of course there will be a group activity. I'll send them in groups of 2 or 3, and they will come forward with their own suggestions. But one thing I find missing in our work plan, it's not always a straight line or marking everything precisely when we start a year. General dates and things, we know now. For example, IDP, we know when it is. IFSW, we know when it is. But so many programs usually spontaneously come up during the year, and for example, partnerships come suddenly, maybe from out of the blue, we get a partner. So we don't know that. So many questions are like that. When do you plan to begin it? When you can achieve? When you can, when do you? So, okay, some of these things we know. But the other, there are so many, there is always a chance for spontaneity and serendipity as we go on.
Sure.
So if we are, yeah.
So would you be willing to share that with me so I could look at it, and maybe that would help me think what to share with others as well?
Yeah, I will send you what I am planning on.
That'd be fabulous.
I will send you the, yeah, thank you.
That'd be fabulous. So what other ideas do people have to help RCs do this planning with their CCs?
So for me, although it's only an idea sort of coming to me now, really, URI is kind of couched in this, it's in the DNA to do a bit of inquiry. Mm-hmm. So it might be interesting if either regions want to develop their own or someone wants to submit an idea, but I could imagine, a sample AI of 3 questions which an RC could lead their trustees or whoever they can get together through, even if it's just on a quick phone call, to at least for the visioning, maybe not fully towards the goals, but what's your broad vision for the zone, for your region, wherever you are, with 3 questions, starting from the best of what is, what's good about what we've got now. So we're building off assets rather than needs. Obviously, need analysis is important, but maybe that's something that might be useful if we were to develop and send out 3 suggested AI questions for a visioning process, maybe.
Yeah.
Something I'd be willing to help with.
Okay, do you want to work with me on that?
I'd be happy to, yeah. If RC's here, I mean, would that be of interest potentially to you?
YouTube's nodding yes, I think.
Yeah, some nods. So I think it's probably worthwhile doing, and if it's useful to a couple of people, then I'm happy.
Okay. All right. This is great ideas. Going back to new leaders and developing young new leaders, I think what's critical is to have a critical number of young leaders involved in this planning process. So do people feel that that's something they could do, or is that something you're going to have challenged with or would need support in how to help include them?
I don't want to over contribute, but see if anyone else has anything to say first.
Yeah.
So Sodaraj has the most youth in his group. Most of them, CCs are youth.
Yeah.
But I wonder how we can be consistent in having young leaders in the work plan discussion, either staff or CC leaders.
Sounds good idea.
Yeah, can I say?
Go ahead. I think all 3 of the RCs wanted to say something. Great.
Yes, as far as youth engagement in work plan, I think I make sure that I always make them participate in this. And also, since we have very new CCs and potential group who are going to be CCs are all of youth. So, and secondly, they have been volunteering us for last few years, and they are well versed with the URI way of work, and also we are very, they support us with the ideas, with what they are interested in. So this helps me a lot, to work with the youth in my zone. So I make sure that they are part of my work plan, and also if there is any change or something like that, so they are very much like consulted. Yeah.
Is it, I wonder if there's something about having some specific questions about what they might be interested in, how to develop their leadership, that kind of thing. If there's anything like that. Do you think that's...
Yes, since we are engaging them, so we want them to be developing into leaders, or like, they are like our second line, leaders who will be trained under by RCs or the CC leaders, or mentoring by the other CCs. So we have this mentorship program also, as Matthew is well aware of that. And yes, it is our intention, our goal to develop them into these builders, true leaders in that sense. Yeah.
And
I think. Oh, sorry. Go
ahead, Matt. No, go ahead.
I was just going to kind of add on to what Kutub was saying, in that I think the work that's been done in West Zone and South, with the sort of young leaders that Abraham's referring to, that he'd like to kind of emulate again. I think in both cases, what it's taken is a targeted and intentional investment in young people, perhaps even above and beyond what one might give to individual CC members of other age groups for a period of time, before you kind of then embed them in the life of your region or your zone. So it requires it's required some kind of program or structural approach, like a mentorship structure, or providing seed funds for a project, that sort of thing, actual visits to the young people in the field, specifically to meet with young people. So, and that's always a challenge, an organizational challenge, where resources are limited. How can we, build up, our young people and young leadership, and face the reality of limited resources at the same time, when what seems to be most effective in building youth leadership is intentional, specific, and conscious investments of time and, yes, money in young people. I think that's always a balancing act.
It is.
Yeah, Linda, I would like to add something to what Matthew said now. It would be great if we can revive the YLP program, which we started some years ago. And we had 3 ambassadors who evolved from out of the YLP projects. One was Greshma. She is already at the UN Peace University now in Costa Rica. The second one was Isaac. He is already a leader now. He attended the KaiSeed conference in Rishikesh last week. And the third boy, he became the best NSS volunteer in the whole Kerala, 300 colleges. So these are grown-up youth ambassadors now. So what I am going to do now is to appoint a new line of youth ambassadors, and also from our YLP schools, we would like to appoint some junior youth ambassadors this year, because we want a strong line of young leaders in our group. So that is our immediate. So it will be great if we can revive the YLP project again, especially among the school CCs.
Mm-hmm. So Abraham,
Yes.
How long were these 3 young people ambassadors?
They were there for about 5 years now, because for about 5 years they were youth ambassadors. Now they have become seniors, and already some of these boys and girls, they have even started a global youth movement, and they have formed a multi-region CC with global youth movement. So they are great leaders now. So now we are going to have the second and third line of youth ambassadors. Yeah.
That's fabulous. And what were Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just going to add some other context as well. Just to say that, obviously the title of youth ambassador is continuous. What it typically represents is, I think, about a year-long investment of resources and time, specifically programmatic, right, Abraham? And maybe in South Zone we had, I think, 2 or 3 years of successive investment and programs itself, and then the ambassadors were kind of streamlined into the lifeblood, if you like, of the region. So continue to be youth ambassadors after that, but the specific investment of program was over a kind of specified period of maybe a year with maybe a follow-up program. I think that Qutb has kind of worked with us on the same basis as well.
And could you say some highlights of what that program was? Was it training? Was it funding?
Yeah, so it was typically specifically youth ambassadors, which we haven't run for a little while now, and you know the way that we're supporting youth leadership, you know, has been changing and is changing. But it would typically be, you know, the selection of individuals to receive mentorship and training, and usually, but not always, at least seed funds for some kind of project or some kind of peer mentoring role. So, for example, in South Zone, these slightly older young people were responsible for nurturing groups in schools of younger people who would set up their own projects, and the schools were given, which are CCs, were given the seed grants. You know, in Qutb Zone, it was more direct to the individuals, but they also worked with wider groups of young and younger people. You know, typically had folks in their late teens, early 20s, working with folks in their early to mid teens, as a kind of, you know, developing them as a next line, really. In other regions, it looks slightly different, but that's typically the track, is the initiation of a project, some mentoring and training.
That's fabulous. That's really fabulous. Seems like that could be something that you could specifically fundraise for. And do y'all depend on the main office of the national or international office to raise the funds, or do y'all raise funds yourselves for your project? How does that work?
Are you talking specifically about the youth program that we mentioned?
Yeah, for this youth program.
Mm-hmm. So that's always been funded by the global office, typically. But with, you know, some of the kind of different ways we're trying to support youth and, you know, realities of budget, that's not possible to the extent and in as many places as we'd like. So that is a challenge, and you know, one of the things I'd like to do next year is to put a bit more of my time into writing grant applications specifically for things like this.
Yeah, things like that.
I think one of the challenges is, how do we have this well-trained, enthusiastic young leaders sitting at the table in the discussion of work plans or any other, sitting in intergenerational dialogue, so that there are not kind of two different lines working.
Agreed.
The youth leaders and then not having a say to the work plan or to any other decision-making processes in the regions. So I would say, Linda, thinking of what you have already shared with us, how do we have a welcoming community in which youth leaders or young leaders sit feeling that they are welcome and that they are open to say whatever they want to say, even challenging what has been happening for a growth. I would like to see that welcoming spirit in what Abraham is planning and in what we always plan.
That's a very interesting piece to think about. What are some ideas on making that planning process welcoming to young people? Besides just inviting them and listening, but what would what would be some ways to make that space open and welcoming?
Thanks.
See,
One of the
yeah. Sodharan, you're good.
I was just going to say one of the ways to do it is to be conscious of their timetables and schedules when scheduling a meeting or call. This was brought home at the Parliament World's Religions, which took place not only at a time where it is not an academic break anywhere in the world, so it severely reduced the ability of students to go, but also it took place during what for a lot, at least in the Western Hemisphere, is a lot of assignment due dates happening. So just a kind of age blindness inherent in the scheduling of the Parliament itself contributed to a lack of young people there. So to bear things like that in mind, when do you have it? What time of day do you have it? Do you have it on a weekday? Do you have it on a weekend? That would be just one of many things I would suggest.
If he's doing this January 6th, what day is January 6th? Is that a weekday? I'm not sure.
January 6th.
I think it is
Sunday.
Abraham, I think Linda's asking you because of your planning session. What day of the week it was, and if you planned a welcoming for young leaders to participate in.
That meeting is on Sunday, the 6th, because Ravi from Sri Lanka is also coming. He is one of our trustees, so he was busy on the other days. I suggested because now he is traveling. So we got only a Sunday, which is free for all our trustees and youth. We are youth leaders are most of them students, so they will be free on Sunday. So we are inviting.
That's great.
Yeah, including all. See, I was going to tell that we have an interfaith students movement. Maybe Linda may not know that. We have a youth wing for URI here in South India, and we have units in schools and colleges. That is the youth wing for URI. So we have so many youth in our fold, and we conduct every year a special youth camp for them. 125 students usually come for this. So we have a good number of youth among our fold, within our fold.
And so you will have youth involved on that Sunday, the January 6th. So
yes.
That's great. That's great. Any other thoughts about making it a welcoming space?
Linda, just to say that Monica Willard is in the call.
Hi, Monica. Thank you. If you see me look up, it's because your faces are up here, and I'm typing down here and looking at the cameras down here. So
Monica says she's on mute. I guess she's going through security at either an airport, maybe at the UN.
Oh, yeah, she's at the airport.
Right,
she's at the airport,
Yep, I remember that. Thank you for your very sweet email, Monica. Okay. Any other ideas of welcoming youth? How, I always think about what's the culture around that. Is there any specific music or cultural things that help?
Yes, Linda, in my zone, when we started, we were conceiving this idea of developing youth leadership program. So I thought there needs to be some kind of bridge building between the CC members who are older and quite senior, and somewhere that ice breaking needs to be done before engaging them together for a project or something like that. And secondly, I was more keen to know the area of interest of the youth, and like I said, they are very good in social media. They are very good in creating posters on online posters, and also I want to tap those interests and make it work during the work plan, so that even elder people cannot deny their skills and talents, because
Right.
elder members are always dependent on someone regarding technology and all this aspect. Yeah.
And
that's
street theater, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Absolutely.
Actually.
Yeah, that's great. That fits back into your talking in the beginning about wanting to be much more visible. As a, young people could play a really strong role in helping make that happen. Because not only are they great at social media, they're so creative, and that's really great. Yeah. So that's wonderful.
Monica is sharing through the chat,
Okay.
saying that having youth that welcome other youth. So having your team, a youth person that is committed to be the one welcoming other youth.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. Any other pieces on this?
Sometimes it is a big challenge also, because last year I wanted to take 5 of our youth members to the National Assembly, and I purchased air ticket for them, all of them, Amritsar, So then suddenly, because of the Delhi pollution and all the flights were cancelled, but we didn't want to disappoint the young people. Again, we have to purchase tickets for them. So sometimes it becomes a very challenging.
Monica, could you mute, please? I think we're hearing an airport background.
Yeah. Whoever is actually like overseeing the hosting via Dom's account can also mute people against their will.
Okay. Let me see if I can figure out.
So maybe at the top right of her thumbnail, you'll see 3 ellipses, and if you click on that, it might give you a mute option.
Okay, let me see if I can get over there. Can't get mine. There we go.
She's already muted.
Oh, she's muted.
Yeah. I'm muted.
So to switching to his laptop.
Okay. Great.
I want to apologize. I'm sorry. It flipped off mute when it went through the security scanners.
We heard the banging.
I'm so sorry. I thought it was totally muted.
That's okay. It was in the beginning. So,
Linda, just to signpost, and Sotarot, forgive me if I'm misrepresenting, but I know that before we jumped into the conversation specifically about youth leadership, it seemed like Abraham Kutub and Sotarot were like sort of straining to say something, and then because of what Kutub and Abraham said, we went down that youth track, and Sotarot had something that wasn't related to that to say that he might still want to. So just to Sotarot, we haven't forgotten about you. If
yes,
you did want to say something else.
I want to go back to Kutub's first thing too, but I wanted to get the youth piece done. And so, Sotarot, do you have a piece that you would like to comment on or think about?
Sorry, am I mute?
No, I can hear you.
Oh. Hello, maybe I'm on mute or something.
Yeah, no, we can hear you through the phone, I think, or something, even though your picture's on mute.
Yeah, it's in the pictures. It's saying mute and it's very blurred, so I don't know.
Yeah, but we can hear you.
But you still see me out. Okay. No, I actually didn't really have concrete idea, but I see that engaging the youth in planning for the 2019 the work plan is a very good idea, which I will do together with Sidon. So we already at some point talk about that. So Sidon will gather some of them and we'll do run a session with them engage them with the plan. Yeah.
All right.
And in terms of idea how to do, there's so much to do actually. It's hard for me to share, but I used to running different workshop on planning. So we'll just have to break down the different pieces in the work plan and get people to work on it, and especially because the work plan now involving the goals. So the year of the goal, so it's going to be very interesting.
Yes, yeah.
I can anticipate that. We'll see what will come out.
And of course, Sodarat's CCs are mostly used, so you have a treasure there, Sodarat, just to consult.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
And Sodarat, also, I know you're planning, if you can, to do like a gathering of your CCs from around your zone, you know, next year. So even though a lot of your CCs are kind of led by younger people, just kind of, you know, being mindful of how do we make sure that it's not just full of young people, but age diverse, you know, in general, so that we don't exclude different generations as we kind of try that gathering. And also, you know, in other things like gender and religion and other kind of diversities that you really want to see, right?
Thank you. Yes. It's true. I see more male than females. It's a good idea to do that. Yeah, it's important to consider that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to remind you of when we talked about facilitation and the role that we play as facilitators, playing a really strong role to make sure that the older folks don't dominate the conversation, that you're allowing it to be. Make sure all voices are heard. Sometimes you need to just stop any general conversation and do go rounds. Make sure you're asking people who aren't, especially if you see people silent, not talking a lot, make sure you're asking them the questions and giving them an opportunity to speak. Because often in these kind of gatherings, younger people can get silenced, and so just think about that in your facilitation as well.
That's a really good point. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, Sodarat, everything brings you upside down. So now your camera.
Now we have two Sodarats, one right side up and one upside down. I love it.
Okay.
I haven't seen that on Zoom for a while. Maria, you've been upside down once on Zoom, haven't you?
At the very beginning, I did.
I can see myself.
Yeah, isn't it great?
All right. Isn't it?
That's so funny. The magic of Zoom. There you go. Oh yeah, good. There you are.
Yeah, but then I can't even see myself in the list.
Oh, gotcha. So I want to go back to what Kutub said in the beginning. She talked about being more visible, and so I thought maybe we could take a few minutes in thinking about what would it look like to make URI more visible in this coming year as part of our planning process. And I wonder, Kutub, if you want to say more about how you see being visible. You mentioned social media, but what other ways?
Yes, Linda, we have a very focused plan in this regard.
Great. Do you want to share some of that? I think she froze.
Yeah, I think maybe she froze.
Yeah. We'll wait a minute and see if it comes unfrozen. Oh, that was strange. Kutub, can you hear us? You may have to sign out and sign back in. I'm not sure. Monica, while you're there, we're talking about any questions we're sitting with, particularly focusing on the planning for the coming year. and doing work plans. And I wonder if you have any questions that you'd like to throw out. You're on mute. Sorry. If I can.
I'm coming up the escalator at the gate, so I can
you're
sit
riding.
down. I'm riding.
Riding up the escalator.
So let me just take a couple more minutes.
Oh yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think QTube is often going to come back in, I'm sure. And
Linda, just to let you know, one strategy that URI is developing is at a global level is just being present at different conferences and being able to speak about URI. And this has happened quite a bit the last months of the year, in which Victor, Kiran, and others participate. So I think partnerships would be a way of being more visible. Partnership with other interfaith organizations or, yep.
Yep.
great.
Okay, so yeah, Kutub is messaging me saying that, yeah, she's got poor signals, so that's why she dropped out. She's trying to reconnect, but
Okay.
She wanted me to convey that, amongst other things, they've got an outreach program to semi-urban and rural areas. That's important. It's, you know, you can go to a lot of conferences in cities and so on, and there are big cities in India with lots happening. But, you know, outreach to semi-urban and rural areas, also kind of embedding that, you know, visibility in a more grassroots way. So a specific outreach program to semi-urban and rural areas. And it's interesting because, you know, if I hope I'm not falsely representing, you know, your work, Abraham, but, you know, a lot of URI in Kerala is kind of in more those areas, the semi-urban and rural, not characterized by kind of, you know, big, you know, alpha world city, you know, kind of contexts, in the towns and villages. So,
We
yeah,
cannot hear you, Abraham.
You can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I want to add to what Maria said.
Could you just speak up a little bit? Sorry, Abraham, just a bit louder.
It's not clear?
It is now, yeah.
Okay, so partnership is very important, and also the World Forums, like the Parliament of World Religions, we had a big presence. So many leaders were present there, and presenting papers and all, especially our leaders. I had a presentation. So many of our leaders were there, and also in the World Tolerance, we had a present. And in South India, last year we had the big floods. 12 districts were affected. URI is present, very much visible in flood relief. Everywhere you can see our board. We had supplied so many water purifiers, water gen machines, household things. So our banners fly everywhere. So it's bad, but it was to make our very visible.
I can't hear you, Abraham.
Yes.
We can't hear you.
Okay.
I got banners out of that. Did anyone hear anything else?
Yeah, so what I got was, so partnerships are important, world forums like the Parliament of World Religions, and URI was very visible in South India in the flood relief efforts. You know, they had these devastating floods recently, so URI is being very present in the kind of NGO and civil society response there. Abraham, if you're using a tablet, I think because you're holding it maybe on your lap and then you're speaking out over it, kind of direct your voice towards the device more, because I think that's what's been happening.
Maybe because of that. Is it clear now?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
thank
clearer.
you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm using my iPhone.
Gotcha. Welcome back, QTube and Monica.
And Kutub says media coverage as well for their programs. They try and get media coverage for the programs. I'm just reading from the chats here.
That's great. That's great. Monica, you need to unmute. Unmute.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Sorry about the hassles before. I would like to say that if we had some good communication, that we all were on the same platforms, we'd do a better job of sharing what we're doing and had a specific way of communicating it on the same way. I just feel totally lost a lot of times. And then when I go to look for something, URI is not one of the ones that comes up in some of the Google searches. So to put some emphasis on getting our stuff to really get to the top of Google searches, and a way of sending out the news in whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's whatever it is, to have us in a way that we can really send like a newsletter at least, so that we can have that communication of what's going on around the world. For me, it's really important to know what other people are doing, and I don't feel like I'm getting enough information from the ways that I'm looking at it, and I know that what I've compiled I haven't sent to the right places. So I need a real communication strategy within, and then to have it more effective out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well said, Monica. Yep.
Put a star beside that because that's requesting a need that I don't have an answer to right now. Does anyone else have a thought about communication strategy? No.
There's an effort
That's
to
something to look at. That's something to definitely look at.
Yeah. I think this is one of the goals of the GSO, just to renew communication and think how to do things better.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a part as well, which I'm sure a lot of us will identify with, where we even have to make sure that people's understanding and information about URI inside URI is up to date. There's been many times where you visited a CC where you've had one point of contact and they pull all the rest of the CC members together, and they don't really have a high level of knowledge about URI. Now this is not the case everywhere, and there are lots of places where all the CC members have really good understanding. But if you imagine that CC members are the kind of word of mouth of URI, because word of mouth is counts for a lot, and we've got tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who are technically members of CCs, then that's huge word of mouth, vehicle. So we need to make sure that information about what URI is and what URI is doing, what other CCs in other places are doing, is reaching as many CC members as possible, not just the contact person. So that's an internal thing that we can do, and some places are doing it very, very well, especially where there's lots of on-the-ground visits to CCs. Some which are bigger areas, maybe with lots of different islands, that's often harder to do. So we need to kind of troubleshoot that.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Monica, did you have your hand up?
I did. Another way that I think we have communications in a really good way is at our global staff meetings. And instead of planning a lot of peripheral things, I would really like us to hear our work and make sure that people really share what their highlights and things.
Okay.
There's an echo somewhere.
Let's see. Is it still happening?
No.
Okay. All right. Any others?
Oh, now it is. Yeah.
So I think it's coming through yours.
Linda,
Yes.
we are waiting for the day when we start the URI TV.
Wait,
URI
one
radio.
second.
You know,
So, can you mute? Okay, yeah, there we go. Try again. Oh, now he's
now Abraham's muted. But no.
I heard him tell what he was saying is the TV station that he wants URI to start.
Ah.
And even more YouTube things.
Uh-huh. More YouTube TV. Okay. That'd be great. Any other thoughts? Anything?
There is a struggle, and this has to do with visibility. Some of the regions have kind of made a point in having URI logo and visible when there's an activity, and requesting the CCs that they do that. I know, for instance, South India always has the logo. I know Latin America has these banners, and CCs have the banner when they do something, but this is not happening around the world. So perhaps we need to be consistent or have a standard use of our marketing or when we do something in the name of URI.
Mm-hmm. That's good. You know, maybe some of these larger questions like the communication strategy and this could be something that we work on with the 3 global, with Maria, Matt, and Alice. Maybe that's something we could brainstorm at our next meeting. Does that make sense? The possibility. Monica?
I agree with it. That makes sense, but I also want to compliment. And I think the more we highlight things that really work, that also helps. And it worked really, really well to have the signs URI speakers on this panel at the Parliament. They were everywhere, and the logo was all over. And I just want to compliment Sarah or Stefan or whoever did those and had them available to us. It was great.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've debriefed about the Parliament, but I think, you know, as a potential model for how URI shows up to these global forums, as Abraham described them, it really is worth, you know, kind of thinking about, because we achieved a level of exposure for URI that was arguably larger than our actual footprint of personnel and investment in our presence at the Parliament, and it was through things like just having these signs where, you know, and I think what that did was, you know, there were a whole bunch of CCs there under their own steam, on their own dime, you know, not sponsored by, you know, URI organizationally in any way, and yet, you know, offering these signs saying a member of URI is giving this workshop to put outside the room when they were doing it, not only, you know, connected URI to them in the minds of their audiences, but in their own minds. And I think that sense of belonging, the more we foster that, the more CCs are going to be ambassadors for URI as well.
Yes, yes. That's great. That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I underline what Matthew says about spirit of belonging. This is something that we need to develop at local, regional, and global level.
Wonderful. Monica?
Can we have a strategy session on that with some ideas? Because as you were saying that, I was thinking, why not feature a CC of the day and just have it? They've got these nice little write-ups. They've got all kinds of things on the website, but actually feature a CC of the day and know that the month of whatever is going to be featuring the work of this region, and the month of whatever, or figuring out some pattern so that people would really pay attention to how they were being highlighted.
I think the website already does do kind of featured CCs, but to maybe think about how to utilize that more is probably worth doing, yeah.
particularly so if most of us, many of us go online with the phone and the first thing we see is We Unite and the executive staff. So there might be a way that we just rearrange how we do it to better do it for devices.
Yeah. So the website is not that interactive. So if you could think about how to post those stories out on mass email or mass social media that draws people to the website would be a really good way to do that. Any other thoughts about that, Monica?
It's a good way to involve youth because they might teach us how to do this. And it would be a really good thing for the young people to be able to show us what we need to be doing, and they could get involved in helping develop this.
Mm-hmm. It's a great idea. Any other thoughts? Okay. Is there any other, I mean, we've covered a lot of really good information. Any other, and there's several follow-up steps. Matt and I are going to have a conversation around AI questions that people can use in their planning sessions with CCs. I'm going to put together some kind of visioning process that with maybe a very short slideshow that folks can use to lead visioning as part of their process of doing work plans with CCs. And then we have a couple big questions about how to do communication strategy and planning and developing that with global staff. Any other next steps that people see that we could be doing?
It might be useful both in terms of the kind of group learning here, but also, Maria, just useful for us from a global programs perspective to find out from RCs if anyone like Abraham does have a date or a call or a meeting or meetings, calls lined up to have this visioning and planning process with, their regional or zonal communities, ahead of completing work plan, for example. Mm-hmm. I think that would be, useful to get in for people to share. And Abraham's shared quite widely that he's got this planning day coming up, which I think is really good.
Oh, yes.
The sharing of it as well as the holding of it. Yeah.
Great idea. And I forgot to say in next steps, Abraham's going to send me his plan for that day as well as one of the follow-up steps.
I had, so I love to see, and I think this might have come only through the CCs in Emmanuel, and I was copied, but he also sent a very concrete and transparent, so this is what we have, this is what I usually do, this is how the office is paid, and this is the remaining funds, what would you like to do? And that was very concrete, and he got a few answers from CCs. So it was just an email. It was not a meeting. It was not a Zoom call. But I think it was well drafted, and I think that it was very well taken as something that is kind of transparent, which hasn't happened before.
And who did that?
Emmanuel Iborga in Western Africa.
Okay, could you share that with us? Or ask if that's okay to share?
I will ask Emmanuel and send you the email he sent to the group of CCs in his region.
Yeah, because it might be something we could create a model with. Y'all could create a model with.
And for instance, so he said, I had in 2018 plan, I had the idea of visiting CCs outside Nigeria, and I couldn't do it. And there was a response from Cameroon, you have to put it in as a priority in 2019. because we need that you are here to develop the work in Cameroon. So it was a very good exchange, even it was in email.
Right. Good. Monica?
All the forms that were sent, we had a meeting with the URI team, and I thought, why don't I show them the self-assessment form? And I was so amazed with what their self-assessment was from themselves when I had a pretty good overview of what they did and what they hadn't done, but what was the most significant thing that they did. And I'm wondering if we can do a tiny thing with the CCs, inviting people to participate in sharing what their highlight for the year is, or something like that, because it brought up a conversation that was just richer than I ever expected. And I was just kind of showing them the forms kind of, perfunctory. And we had a wonderful, wonderful meeting.
Great.
And so I thought maybe if we asked something like that of the CCs to let them say what they are most proud of. I mean, we might hear from people we don't hear from otherwise, or we might hear something we didn't know about.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Great idea. So, a wealth of ideas. So, okay, I think we've got a lot of next steps, a lot of things to do, wonderful ideas and conversations. I thank all of you. I think this has been really rich, and hopefully other people will listen to it. I would like to close by asking people how they will celebrate the holidays, if they have holidays coming up this month. And I'd like to start, YouTube. Can you unmute and talk about how you celebrate the holidays? We'll be celebrating the holidays if you are.
Linda, you are asking this question to a wrong person, because I've never observed any holiday.
Okay.
Except like for praying. Except for praying during Eid, and that's it. And I have never been to any restaurant or theater or nothing like that. So for me, there is no such holiday. Okay, of course, it's going to be a work, and since I'm engaged in other activism, so I'm going to be doing the work as usual. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Who else would like to go? Who'd like to go next? Monica, I know you have to maybe leave soon. Monica?
First of all, I'm so glad to be on this call with everyone and to say Happy New Year to everyone then, because that's one that we all do share on January 1st, and some years are celebrated additionally religiously. But for Christmas, I am flying to Denver, and to be with our granddaughter and son, and then for New Year's, I'll be with my brother, who's going to be starting retirement this year.
Wonderful.
So it's family.
Yeah. Abraham?
Yeah. We have a family get-together on 25th, that is on Christmas Day. My brother from Florida, United States, he has come with his family. So we will all the family members will be together on Christmas Day. That
wonderful.
Is the celebration. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sudarat. You're on mute. I think, or you're not coming through. I think your phone's muted and it's not showing that. There, you're muted now. Unmute, maybe.
Hello. It's terrible sound.
So that's because your other device is still connected to Zoom, and even though it's muted, the sound's probably coming out of the speakers. So the device you joined us first on before switching to the device you're on now is still connected to this call. So it's probably still broadcasting sound, which is probably giving a feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
So if you disconnect one of your devices, no, you're muted on both of your devices right now. But what I mean is the sound of us, not you, is probably coming out of the speakers of both the devices that you have been connecting to this call on. So if you connected with your phone earlier, you're still connected to Zoom on it, and it's probably still coming out speakers.
So it sounds like Sotira is going to be in outer space for the holidays. Maybe you can write in chat.
Okay, Linda, just wanted to share and to ask a request from all our seasoned people. So we have set an opt-in call for Wednesday the 19th at 6 p.m. San Francisco time, and Thursday the 20th, 9 a.m. San Francisco time. In this Zoom calls, we gather all the community, staff, CCs, trustees, and we go through an agenda. The theme of this year is Bold Spirit. That was the theme that was chosen for our annual review. And in fact, we need to have bold spirit to work in URI and to try to do our work. So because this is a community invitation, the more than you share with CCs and other people in your regions so that they can organize to come, that would be fantastic.
That's great.
So please do that, because it is not celebrating one or the other holiday. At the end of the year, we have many communities having holidays. We have Diwali, we have Baha'is, and we have, but it has to do with celebrating the community as it is, and as it is growing, and with volunteers and with staff, and it has always been a wonderful opportunity of feeling what you say, Linda, this idea of ownership of URI. So please help us spread the word.
Great. And Maria, how will you celebrate the holidays?
So we get the family together for Christmas, and always by the sea, because all my sons and daughters are very water sports. So we go to Uruguay, to a small town, and have Christmas time together. And Marcos from San Francisco is coming, so I'm so happy and looking forward to see him.
Matt?
Yeah, well, although for various reasons, Christmas doesn't really have as big a kind of significance to me anymore. I am putting up the decorations hopefully tonight, and I will be hosting, Christmas dinner at my home, my sort of immediate family coming round. But for in Wales, for kind of followers, practitioners of sort of folk traditions that nowadays are pretty much secular and connected to kind of arts and culture more than they are to religious beliefs, but they're couched in symbolism. Actually, the old New Year is of some significance. So it's not a New Year that we share with the rest of the secular world. On January the 1st, of course, many cultures have their different New Years. Ours is on January the 13th, so it's New Year by the old Julian calendar. And there's a tradition of taking the weirdest effigy you'll ever see, which is this mischievous horse spirit, essentially, that is built in this puppet form. And you take it from house to house or tavern to tavern, basically singing to the folks inside who are supposed to sing back to you, and it's a bit of a song battle, a rhyme battle, which eventually results in the party leading this spirit indoors to wish good luck for the new year, and to partake in treats and so on. It's probably related to trick or treat in some way.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Yeah, if you wanted to Google it, so people can see a picture, I'm very happy to give you that, because I see your you're Googling at the moment on your sharing screen.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at Siem Reap.
Siem Reap. Mm-hmm.
Which Kurat will be celebrating. And he says it'll be both of them will be both Christmas and Siem Reap will be on Pub Street.
Oh, nice! Yeah, I have enjoyed that.
Yeah, Siem Reap is a wonderful place to be. So wow, this is a good way to enjoy Christmas, Sadrat.
And I will be I celebrate solstice, which is the longest night of the year, and then where the light starts to emerge, and it's an old holiday. I mean, it's an old tradition, older than Christianity, and was really where the working class people out in the rural areas, the farm areas, and they used trees. And so I have a tree. It's a solstice tree. It looks very similar to Christmas trees, except mine is covered with all nature and birds and beautiful natural things. And I'll celebrate with my family of choice. My parents are both gone, and my sisters are far flung on other parts of the country. And so my friends and I will come together. And it's great I celebrate that day because I can have all my friends around and they can go off and do their thing with their family on Christmas. So so that's my holiday, and it's been wonderful hearing about the different ones. I'm going to have to Google yours, Matt, and read more about yours, Sadrat, and learn more about these celebrations. So that's wonderful. Thank you, and we'll be following up. And I hope everyone has a wonderful holidays if you celebrate them, and New Year, and that the planning sessions go well, and you'll be hearing from me next week. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay. Everybody, Monica, have a safe travel.
Thank you, and I'm
Thank
really
you.
sorry I caused the noise on the call. I
That's all right.
apologize. My best
Thanks,
and blessings
everyone.
to all of you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Carol.
Bye-bye.
How to leave. I'll do it now. Okay.